Hello, YouTube viewers, and welcome to another episode on Go Figure Customs YouTube channel. I gotta think about that every time I say it because I said it wrong the first time and now it's ingrained. Coming to you from the deck of the USS Flag this morning instead of my normal recording spot because my wife recently had emergency eye surgery and she had a recheck today and her eyes got her eyes dilated and she can now see into the UV spectrum, probably the infrared spectrum as well, or the ultraviolet. And anyway, I don't have the lighting needed to do my show from upstairs. So I'm down in the basement, which I'm still working on. The video will hopefully be coming soon. I'm still putting a lot of stuff together. I'm still waiting on a few things to really kind of spruce it up, and there's a few decorating things that I want to do before I really get down and do a decent video of the man cave as it is. One of the other things that I wanted to mention, for a number of years, my best friend and I have done a podcast called General Geekery. You may have, some of the more faithful viewers may have heard of that and remember that, all 15 of you. And you know, it has always been really sporadic just due to the fact that I work overseas and I can't do the between crappy internet in third world countries and the time differences. It does not lend itself for us to do podcasts while I'm away. And then we ran into the challenge on the last podcast that the recording software that I'm using on my computer has stopped working with the new OS, with the new operating system upgrade. So we were kind of stuck on how we were going to do our next podcast when my partner suggested that we do a video podcast, which I had suggested at one point in time, but he vetoed. But since he's into the idea now, I think probably what we're going to do is we are going to do a video podcast, and we will probably use this channel as the platform for it. So we will record something and it will go up on this channel. The type of podcast, like I said, is called General Geekery because we talk about just any number of things, from movies to comic books to TV shows to toys. About the only thing that we don't talk about on the show is gaming, because neither one of us is a gamer. So I think probably one of the topics that will be coming up on the show when we get it going is like 6-inch G.I. Joes, because he's very much in favor of them and I'm very much not. We'll probably be talking about Marvel Legends, because he's recently started collecting some of those, and I have a fairly decent collection of Iron Man Marvel Legends. And just, I don't know, whatever we end up talking about. It's a very stream of consciousness show, and we take great pride in the low technical quality of it. I know there's a lot better podcasts and video casts to watch on YouTube, but I think it's an enjoyable show because just the way that we present it. So it kind of, you kind of get past the quality of it and just enjoy it for what it is. So today's episode, for this show, I've had requests from people wanting me to review my own custom figures. And I haven't had a lot of figures that I've finished recently since I started podcasting this, and I've been working on other projects. And here comes my puppy to say hello. There's the puppy. That's Alice. So I really haven't finished a lot of customs to do a review, and then the ones that I have finished, I have forgotten about doing something like that. So I've started a new project, and you can see part of it behind me there, all those figures that are behind me on the wall are my custom figures on my custom cards. So my project for this year, for the entire year, is to get all of my old customs on custom card backs. And if you've watched the channel, then you know that I've done a whole series of videos on how to make your own custom card backs. And quite honestly, if you're looking for a new way to make your new customs, take it the next step, carding it on a custom card back is definitely that next step. I would also say it is, for your older customs, it is definitely a way to make your older customs new again, to make them really pop. So while I was on assignment, on my last assignment, I had a little spare time, and had taken pictures of some of my figures of my older figures before I left. So I put together a whole batch of custom cards while I was gone. Well, I got those printed off yesterday, and my kind of like pitfall tip for custom cards is when you convert your cards to PDFs for your printer, make sure that the program you're using does not resize the pictures, because I used a new way to change my JPEGs to PDFs yesterday, and it arbitrarily resized them, and they came out like 8.5 by 11 instead of 6 by 9, and I printed almost 70 cards in the wrong size that I just had to throw away and reprint. So that's the tip for if you're making your own custom card backs. If you have to change them to PDFs before you get them printed, make sure that they are the right size before you take them to the printer, or you're going to be upset like I was. So I am going to review some of the figures that I carded yesterday. So one of my favorite types of customs to make is G.I. Joe customs. I like to re-envision some of the older figures, some of my favorite characters, in a more realistic military style. So if you're familiar with my work, you're going to recognize some of these figures. And what I've been doing with those reimagined G.I. Joes is putting them on the vintage style cards. So here is my sneak peek. I was never a big fan of the card art, because if you read the file card, Sneak Peek's actually a pretty good badass, but he looks like a butterball in his card art, which I never really liked. But as fans will know, that he is specifically looks like I think it's Stephen King's son or something like that. So he was supposed to look like somebody. But this is my sneak peek on a vintage style card, and I've got his accessories. So like I switched out his periscope for a drone. He's got his backpack, there's a camera in there, his weapon, and then he is on the card. One of the things, I'm using templates from Joe Customs wiki. Be careful if you get the G.I. Joe templates from Joe Customs, because somehow their website is full of malware now, and it will, when I use it, it tries to redirect me to something that wants to update the Flash player on my computer, and I fell for it the first time, and it took me a couple hours to get my computer sorted. So I know Joe Customs is not a big fan of mine because of some history, and I am not a big fan of them, but they are still a good resource. So that's so just be careful when you use their site, because they have malware on their site. So that's my sneak peek custom on the vintage card. This is an old custom. This is a 25th anniversary figure. So it's one of my first 25th anniversary figures, Snow Serpent, on the vintage style card. And I was going to mention that you can see I've gone as far as listing what actual equipment he comes with, and you can't really see it on the video, and it's really even hard to see in person, but the list of what he comes with is actually what is on the card, which I think is kind of a nice little Easter egg. So another one of the figures that I made, I actually have the San Diego Comic-Con set with the Constructicon bat, but I wanted to make my own. So this is using the template that I posted on, that I made myself. So the whole template is my template based on the vintage style Transformer cards. I did it all in Photoshop, which I was impressed that I was able to do it myself. So, and really happy with how it turned out. So this is my Constructicon bat on a vintage style Transformer card. And again, all the equipment that he comes with. Let's see what I got here. This is a custom I did years and years and years ago, probably 10, 15 years by now. Dark Empire Luke Skywalker. I really enjoyed the series, so I made a custom of him long time ago. I mean, this is an old custom, but I really like how it looks on a card. It looks new again, and I like how some of my old customs that aren't as nice as some of my, definitely not as nice as some of my newer stuff, looks on a card now. I did a repaint of the Concept Snowtrooper. So there it is. I used my photo and photoshopped it into just some art, Star Wars art that I found online. And one of the things that I do is I number my cards. So that's number 44. So there are actually at least 44 of my customs carded because I number them sequentially. Even if it's for a commission, so I know at least a couple of my Star Wars cards I did commissions for. So I don't have a full set of my own figures because a couple of those are floating around and are that particular number. I should set these because I'm gonna put these up on the wall. I need to set them in piles. I need to sort them. I did Shore Leave from Venture Brother to go with my Brock Sampson that I got autographed. I would like to meet this guy, the guy that does the voice at a convention sometime. I don't know if he does conventions, but it sure would be cool to get this autograph to go with my Brock Sampson figure that Patrick Warburton autographed for me. Cal Scrata, this is from a series of Star Wars books. And yeah, he's supposed to look like that particular actor, Ed Harris. The author specifically stated she based the character off Ed Harris mannerisms and how he just how she described him. He's supposed to look like Ed Harris. So this is just some fan art that I found. And again, this is a really old custom. I mean, I can't even tell you. It's more than 10 years old at this point, but it looks great on a custom card. This is Facebook friends with the artist that did this. I can't pronounce his last name. David Lazau, I think might be how you pronounce it. Anyway, he is a really cool guy and has taken no issue to me using his art for my cards. Number one, because I don't sell them, and number two, I do give him credit. I haven't posted the figure carded yet. I need to do that today, and then give him credit for it because he has seen two of my other. You can see him right here. That one right there and the one next to it are using his artwork. Sorry, just got a text message. I lost my train of thought. He really appreciates the fact that I think he really likes the fact that his artwork has inspired somebody else to do some artwork too. So, and that's his art is called Day of the Dead, and I just, he does old Western and like modern military, and that's one of the World War II figures using my Kickstarter figure from the Marauder Task Force World War II stuff, and then I used boss fight parts on that. So that's what the Marauder, the helmet is BBI. But that's the new Marauder World War II stuff if you don't have any of that. And I highly recommend Marauder Task Force stuff. And quite honestly, most of my customs, I'm using Marauder Task Force stuff for. It's relatively, I won't say it's inexpensive because it's not necessarily cheap, but it's with the way the prices are going on 3 3/4 inch. I won't call it vintage GI Joe stuff, but anything GI Joe is just insanely priced on the secondary market right now. Just people think if it says GI Joe, they're rich. So it's really hard. I don't say it's really hard, but it's really expensive for me to get parts for customs. So I'm thinking about switching all of my customs to a Marauder Task Force buck. I swear, if they make bloused trousers, so pants tucked into the boots instead of over them, if they make those in male and female legs, I probably will use Marauder Task Force parts almost exclusively for all of my customs, because they are super easy to customize. The plastics are great. Their quality is good. I've not had one break on me. And they're easily customizable. They're designed to be customized. So I highly recommend the Marauder Task Force stuff. This is an old custom. One of my best friends sculpted the helmet for me. A lot of my old Star Wars customs have helmets that were sculpted by Straxus or my buddy Dion. This is my combat control clone, so like a forward operating control that, like the CCT for that like the Air Force uses, combat control that call in airstrikes, the Air Force Special Forces. So that's basically what this is. And then I did a digital camo on him using a specific painting technique that's not as hard as you might think. And it turns out pretty nice, actually. Star Wars, setting the Star Wars stuff aside so it all goes on one wall. All right. Black Ops Commander Cody. So when the Clone Troopers were coming out, everybody was doing clone customs. So I had to do something. I liked the Clone Troopers, so I had to do something different than everybody else. Everybody was getting the Clone Troopers and they were just weathering them. And I hate painting white. Painting white's a pain in the ass. White, yellow, and orange suck to use. That's one of the reasons I want to switch to an airbrush for colors like that. So to be different, I did Black Ops versions of some of the clone commanders and basically used their primary color, which is on Commander Cody's orange, and then instead of white I did black. So this is just a repainted Commander Cody figure with Black Ops. With black. So, and that's a really old custom too. So there's a lot of art going around of the tactical Mandalorian stuff, so like realistic military Mandalorian. And they're actually making a 12-inch figure that looks really cool. So this is my version, my take on it. I'm not 100% happy with how this one turned out. I think this is one I'm going to revisit some point in time. I'm really short on Mandalorian parts, so I'm hoping that with the Mandalorian TV show out, that there will be some more 3 3/4 inch Mandalorian figures coming out that I might use as custom fodder. But I really like the card, and I think the figure looks nice on the card. So I'm not 100% happy with how the custom came out. It didn't get, not a lot of people liked it as much as I'd hoped, but again, I think that will be one that I will revisit. Every once in a while, I do a custom and I'm not completely happy with it, and I revisit it and see if I can improve upon that. My Night Vipers are a good example of that. I'm always trying to do a better Night Viper custom. Based off of the club exclusive Nano Bat figure, which the Nano Bat, the club exclusive, had translucent parts, and my skill level is not there to where I can cast my own parts. I'm hoping at some point in time that I'll be able to cast my own stuff, but not at this point in time. I couldn't afford the figure at the time, so I made my own. I did eventually end up getting the club exclusive Nanobat, so I have one of the figures. But this is my version of it, and I'm happy with how the figure turned out. And I think it looks good on the card as well. G.I. Joe stuff is going over here for now. So this is Cliff Dagger with the torch mask. A number of years back, a buddy of mine did a bunch, not all, but most of the mask, the helmets. Unfortunately, I was not smart enough to pick them all up at the time. I did pick up a bunch of them, but I didn't get them all, and I wish I had. But eventually I would like to make customs for the ones that I do have. And this is one that I did finish. And this is, like I said, this is a really old custom. Mask art is hard to find. This is actually the art that I used for my Matt Tracker custom. So I'm gonna just say this is like my stock card. So if I do more mask customs, they will be on this card, and it will either have the mask or the Venom logo on it, depending on which affiliation that particular character is. And I'm still using super glue to glue my bubbles on, and it still seems to be working pretty good. So next custom, a number of years ago, again, this is probably 10, 12 years old. I bought a set of, there was a exclusive set of the Bounty Hunters from Star Wars, so I bought that, and it was a holiday. My mom was visiting. She came down for a couple of days, so all we did was just veg out on the sofa and watch TV, and I repainted all of the Bounty Hunters and made custom weapons for them. So this is the Boba Fett on my own Boba Fett card. I like how the paint job came out, but the figure is absolute shit. Because it's not, in this day and age, I wouldn't make a custom that wasn't super articulated, that didn't have decent articulation. That is one of the reasons that I don't like why I don't collect like the BBI figures. I only use them for customs. And it's one of the reasons there are a lot of toy lines that I don't get into, because if my figures aren't super articulated, I don't like them. And there are toy lines that I'll get that aren't super articulated, and I will kit bash, customize articulation into them. There's my RoboCop is a good example of that. I think it only had like 5 points of articulation. It might not even been articulated to begin with. It was just like a snap kit. But I was able to take an old Cobra Commander figure and Dremel out parts and cut up parts, part above and part below the joint, and assemble it and put it together, and made an articulated RoboCop figure, which they're gonna make by Hiya Toys. And I got a cold, so I probably have coronavirus. I hope you don't get coronavirus from watching my show. All this international travel. I went through Nigeria, Paris, Atlanta, and Colorado. All those places have coronavirus, so achoo. All right, another one of my favorite old Star Wars customs. Again, the helmet was custom sculpted for me by my buddy, Dion. He did a lot of work for me back in the day. Like I said, a lot of my old Star Wars customs I've done just because my buddy did helmets for me. But I like how the paint job on this came out, and this is my Elite Airborne Trooper. And I'm using, for my own, a lot of these are my own creation, like my character like the Combat Control clone and that Elite Airborne. These aren't pre-existing characters, so it's my particular character. So I'm using the Expanded Universe template for that. If I'm doing a character of a pre-existing or custom of a pre-existing character, I will use what the template from that particular movie or TV show he was from. From Batman Begins, the Fear Gas Batman, there's a scene where people are seeing Batman. This is what he looks like after the Scarecrow has sprayed them with the fear gas. I just used art from the 12-inch Hiya Toys figure, photoshopped it onto two different Batman Begins posters. That's why there's a big bat in the front, big bat in the back. Really old custom. What's really kind of cool about this is the cape has a wire in it, so it's very posable. So while the custom is not necessarily one of my better ones, it is kind of one of the cooler ones because of that. A long time ago, there was a toy line in Japan called Microman. I lost my train of thought there. Microman. My buddy Jimbo put me onto these a number of years ago. I don't use them so much anymore because I don't like how they look anymore. But compared to, and this was before 25th anniversary G.I. Joes came out. So, but they're highly articulated was the reason that I like them. And you can see how kind of goofy the arms are and the torso and the legs. I mean, everything about it is kind of, the proportions are kind of off, but it is really articulated. Again, this is a really old custom. The sword was sculpted by a buddy of mine, same guy that did the helmet, the mask helmets. I wish I'd had another cast of that. This is a custom that I'd like to revisit at some point in time using like boss fight parts. But one of the reasons I do like this particular one is this is in scale. This figure is actually significantly taller than a normal G.I. Joe figure, so it does approximate, it does make him look like he is supposed to, the big barbarian compared to just a regular normal buck figure, which I did like about Microman is they had different sized bucks. Like there was 3 different female ones. Of course, they were all based on the breast size, but the fact that they had variation in the buck was nice. And I actually made a using Microman figures. I made a SEAL team, a 4-man SEAL team with those. I think I won some kind of custom contest with that at one point in time. But I don't remember. It was a long time ago. And I've stripped all those down anyway, so I don't even have those customs anymore. Here's another one of the bounty hunters that I just repainted. So there's nothing fancy about this. And then just on the Forlom card, I'm just getting art from like Google Image or Bing Image, and then just resizing it. And then I have Star Wars templates. And like I said, if you're interested in making your own cards and want templates, because I have G.I. Joe templates, I have Star Wars templates, I'm willing to share my Transformer template. Templates make this a lot easier, especially if your Photoshop skills are minimal. But you do need Photoshop to do these. Sorry, I have a bit of sore throat from talking. Just a repainted Stormtrooper figure with a Paldron Shadow Trooper. Nothing fancy. Again, I did it on the Expanded Universe card because it's not a pre-existing card. The background, however, is really neat. Let me get it real quick here. Let me pause the video and we'll take a look at the background that I used to shoot this on. All right, so the background I used to shoot some of those Star Wars figures on is pretty cool. A buddy of mine makes these D&J Toys. You can find them on Facebook. He has, I don't know if he's still making these because this is a number of years ago, But it's nice, like hard poster board. The dogs are barking because they think I knocked on the door. Hang on a sec. So it's nice, like hard. It's not, I wouldn't call it foam core, I don't know what this is, but it's really nice. And then the design's printed on that, and then it's screwed together at the bottom. But when he was making these, he had probably 20 different versions of this. So I mean, he had Star Wars sci-fi stuff and like environmental, like outside in the desert, and he made a number of these. He gave this one to me to review for the General Geekery podcast I mentioned earlier, and I use this a ton. I just set it in a light box, and then set my figures on a figure stand and shoot my figures on it, and it makes it look like they're on the Death Star. So I highly recommend that if you're, and you wouldn't necessarily just use this to take pictures of your customs, because this will set on a shelf somewhere and it will make a nice diorama. I think that's what he intentionally envisioned these for, was dioramas for your figures for display. But I like to use them to take pictures of my customs. So back to G.I. Joe. Again, like I said, I like to re-envision G.I. Joe and make the characters more modern, military. So here's my Beachhead custom on the vintage Beachhead card. And I didn't just find the card for Beachhead. So I mean, like, I used a template. I used a specific blast effect. I put in a different layer for I like the cream, because the cream background instead of the white that was on the blast effect that I'm using. So just the art for the card is three different things. I mean, it looks pretty simple, but there's a lot of work that goes into just these G.I. Joe cards. It's not just scan a G.I. Joe card, slap a figure on it. There's a lot of work that's involved in these old G.I. Joe vintage cards that's not readily apparent. But you get what you pay for. You get what you put in. Like my Alpine custom that I posted on Facebook recently, because I finished the card for that and got him carded a couple days ago. He's up on the wall right now. I really like how that card came out, and I really like how that figure looks on that card. So this is my reimagined Chuckles. So I kind of imagined him as like a CIA liaison. So I'm using one of the Marauder Task Force covert ops figures. So the suited figure, I just gave him some body armor underneath his kind of suit jacket there. So that's what I reimagined him as, is like a G.I. Joe CIA liaison. Nothing too fancy, but I think it's I think it's better than Chuckles was originally. All right, so another custom that I am particularly proud of is my Dutch custom. I was really happy with how this one came out. So I have not been happy with how I've made several different Predator cards for my figures, and I've not been happy with any of them. So I decided I would take the old movie poster and redesign it a little bit. So this part right here used to be down here. And for the particular figure, I'm using, like, this is Jungle Extraction Dutch. So the NECA figures, so the 6-inch figures, they have this particular figure in this particular outfit, and that's what they've called that figure. So I've done another Dutch custom where he's covered in mud, head to toe in mud, and the handmade weapons that he made in the jungle, and they call that the Jungle Disguise Dutch. So that's what I called my figure. I think it kind of adds a little bit of, this is a, it kind of makes it like it's still the toy line, a toy line, because it has the name of the figure as it is in the toy line, in a toy line, just not my toy line. Just a repainted, I liked the figure. It's I kind of wish I'd thought this, seen Clone Wars, the animated series, before I had made this card, because the figure is very reminiscent of the Commando droids. So I kind of wish I had called this a Commando droid on the card, but it is what it is. Not enough to make a new card and get it printed and go through all the headache of getting it recarded. And I made that a number of years ago. God, these have dog hair all over them. So this is my Black Ops Theory. I'm not sure if that's how I actually say his name. 3. So just used his primary colors, which was red, and switched the white to black. So, and then just found some art of him, and then photoshopped that onto a background that I found on Photoshop, or on the internet, and that's all it is. It's just a lot of finding stuff on the internet and bashing it together in Photoshop. And then last for today, see, and this, you can see where the glue kind of came out and it already started pulling away. So the glue is not perfect. I did have some problems with glue on these batches of figures, but I haven't found a double-sided tape that I like yet, and I'm a little wary of using double-sided tape. Like Beggars Canyon, that sells repro stuff, they sell a double-sided tape, but you have to trim it down. And I have seen, and I don't really want to, and they flat out say that it's a pain in the ass to use the stuff. I'm not looking to make my customizing more difficult. So super glue works for the most part, and I'm not making these for anybody. Nobody's gonna see these. You're gonna go up on the wall, and from a distance, you don't notice it. If I was doing this as commission, I wouldn't be happy with that. I would reprint that card and redo the custom. But for myself, and for that figure, I mean, that custom is number one, it's just a repaint. I did no customizing to that whatsoever. There is no skill involved in that other than just a paint job. So it was just a weekend project while my mom was visiting, something to pass the time. So I don't really care enough to fix that, because the figure's not worth it. But if I was doing that for a commission, yeah, I would be looking into something a little different than maybe super glue. Because the super glue does get hard. You can't use super glue accelerator, which is what really makes super glue work well for customs, is super glue accelerator. Highly recommend that. When you're using super glue on your figures, you're customizing, you need to use super glue accelerator. Number one, it accelerates it, so it accelerates it so it dries a lot faster, but it also seems to strengthen it. There's definitely figures where I've tried to peel gear off of, tried to salvage parts, and it doesn't. I can't pull it apart because the super glue is so well adhered because of the super glue accelerator. And you can get that at any decent, I won't say hobby store, because I don't know that you'll find it at like Hobby Lobby or Michael's, but any place that sells like Warhammer stuff, gaming stuff, you're gonna find it there. I think that's about all I've got for this particular episode. That's all the figures that I got carded today. I did print out a whole bunch of more cards, but I'm waiting on blisters for those. And if you're curious, I did get my blisters from a place called Empire Blisters. They have a decent selection. You can also get them from Beggars Canyon. However, they are significantly more expensive. And I don't I won't say I don't like them, but I don't like how they operate because they're selling repro kits. And a lot of people will take advantage of that. I think people will card old figures on repro kits and then try and pass them off as originals. And I think that is a horrible, horrible idea. So, and because I don't know that their cards are marked that it's reproduction. Whereas, mine clearly say, have my logo and my, they don't say G.I. Joe, they say Go Figure. The Star Wars logo is on there, but not on the G.I. Joe stuff. And then I always put my own logo on there, so it's clearly a custom figure, and I'm not trying to pass it off as an original. And I've seen people do that, so you got to be wary when you're buying stuff. Vintage stuff is that it's not on a reproduction card. So I don't like the fact that that option is so readily available, because there is some skill involved in making these cards. So the number of people able to do quality reproduction stuff is limited, so there's a limited chance of getting taken, getting screwed by that. But anybody can glue a blister to a card. So so while I think the idea is novel, I don't like the fact that it's a thing, because somebody's going to get screwed on that at some point in time, and I don't like that. But like I said, I think that's all I've got for you for this particular episode. We'll do a review of the rest of the figures once I get them carded, hopefully in the next couple of days. I'm going to be looking into doing the video podcasting, which I will host on this channel. So tune in for that. If you have ideas, suggestions for that, one of the things that we used to do, we used to get guests as on our podcast, and we used to get I won't call them famous, but very well-known customizers would come on the show. We got one of the Star Wars authors that writes books for the Star Wars series on there one time. Other podcasts will have the hosts from other podcasts on the show as guests. So if you're wanting to see particular things on a video podcast, let me know, and we'll see what we can do about that, because hopefully that will be a thing again here soon. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, all those social media things, and stay tuned for more episodes.